So hello and welcome to Solutions IQ India's webinar series on DevOps. The previous episode in the series was called DevOps, Demystifying the Mystery. We heard about the meaning and significance of DevOps and also learnt about its key concepts, its working, and busted a few myths too. Today's session is going to be called Test Strategy for DevOps, as we can see. We know that continuous testing and integration is integral to DevOps, and in such a case, automation is inevitable. However, in reality, test automation is not always a smooth ride that straight away improves the code quality or justifies all the investment that goes behind it. In fact, what we need here is a sound strategy. In today's webinar, Vinay, our presenter, is going to talk about some important facets of developing a test strategy that would include test design and test case development. So without any further delay, I'm handing over to Vinay now. There you go, Vinay.
Thanks, Antara.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second session on DevOps. It's a DevOps series of webinars that we are conducting on Solutions IQ. And today we are going to discuss about the testing strategy with respect to DevOps. Okay. So it's a quick overview about myself. So I'm having a 15 years of experience in software development. Currently, I'm working as an Agile technical coach at Solutions IQ and helping teams to adopt various Agile engineering practices, including XP and DevOps. So quick recap of some of the things that we have discussed in our first session. And the first session was more focused on the DevOps concept. So what we have discussed last time was it's a cultural change when we are talking about DevOps, which is nothing but breaking the silos between Dev and Ops teams so that they should start working together as a single team for a single goal. We also busted several myths about DevOps, and we focused more on effective collaboration between Dev and Ops teams, which is the need of DevOps. So those things we have touched upon in our last session. Okay, so now on this session, so might be we have already seen this image, this cartoon, and what we want to convey here is, and that's a day-to-day activity from the development and production side as well. When we try to fix a bug, it introduces several new bugs. And just imagine that what will be the situation when we are going to fix a defect and putting into the production, and finally we are getting to know that there are many other bugs are going to come. Right. And that actually initiate a discussion like what we should do in that case, how we can fine-tune this testing in case of when we are having both Dev and Ops together. So if you look at from the development side, they more focus on the change that they need to implement, and that's where they are actually having that whole intention of that development. Whereas if you look at the operation side, they need stability. Why? Because something is working in the production, is stable, and because of the new change or new implementation, it may make this that particular application on production unstable. So they want stability at their side, and that's the reason there is a wall of confusion. And to achieve their goal, they do perform some sort of testing as well at their end, both from the development side as well as the operation side. I will look at in our subsequent slide that as well. what I want to convey here is they are two teams and they have the wall of confusion. They are actually working for the change implementation. One is working for how they can make that more stable. So if you look at from the development team, and when I'm talking about development team, it includes QA testers as well. So they perform various type of testing at various phases, which includes unit testing, integration testing, functional regression, and many more application need. Like we can have some performance also, we can have some security related testing as well, non-functional requirement, which includes the performance security as well. So any other things are there that needs to be tested, they do that. And they perform these testing in various phases. Whereas if you look at from the ops side, so once they get the package which they have to deploy, they take their own defined timeline, and based upon that, within that timeline, they perform various type of verification at their end. So one could be like pre-deployment test. So before that, they just want to apply those package in pre-production environment and see that, do a quick round of sanity test from their side, and then post-deployment test as well. That is also required, and they also keep doing that monitoring and monitoring to that application. That is another thing. But basically, they do not apply those packages directly to the production. They are having their own set of test cases, and those test cases, if you look at, are having more worth. I'm not saying that what development is doing is having less, but of course the operation, when they test, they know the customer, how the customer is using that application, which are the functionality being used a lot, or which are the functionality which is critical from customer's point of view. So they will have their own set of test cases which they apply. So now what happens from both development perspective and ops perspective? We feel that we need to automate the test cases which we do normally in terms of manual, and the reason is same for both the case: shorten and fasten the time to market, it lowers the risk of human error, and we find that it's efficient and consistent as well. And for that reason, at various stages, various phases, we try to automate the test cases, right? From development side, if you look at, we are having some QA team members, as well as we are having the development team who are having enough skills to write the code to automate those test cases. Whereas if you will look at from the ops side, they are actually struggling in that case, or maybe they need some support from the development team as well, or maybe some specific role they need. So let's look at, when we are talking about automate, at what level and how we should create our strategy in that context. So normally we will have lots of manual test cases. If we have some legacy application, or even if we are going to start with a fresh one, that whether it's a greenfield or brownfield application, we are having some sort of manual test cases, and then we start working on the automation part. So we use various tools which is available to automate those test cases, either at UI or end-to-end level. We also write or automate the integration test cases, where we try to verify to a component when they are actually talking to each other, or there is some message exchange or data exchange happening. And then a developer also writes some unit test. And typically it has been observed that unit test in most of the cases has been ignored comparing to other test cases like integration or end-to-end. And this particular triangle, if I have depicted this in the triangle way, if you can see that the way it has been presented, it does not gives us a feel of stability. And believe me, it's not stable if we are going to have the test cases in this ratio. So if you look at end-to-end test cases are a lot, then we have a small list, a small number of test cases on integration and very small on the unit test cases. So what is the impact if we will have this type of ratio in our automation test suite? The thing is, if you look at that automation feedback, automation benefits which we have listed down here, it will not shorten and fasten the time to market, or it will not give us the feedback at the right moment. Efficient and consistent lower risk of human error will be always there, but the shorten and fasten part will not be there. It will take always lots of time to execute the entire test suite, and developer has to wait to get the feedback at the end when that end-to-end test cases has been automated. So what has been done in that case? So the ideal situation is this triangle where the foundation is on your unit test cases, and if you can see that maximum as much as possible if you can write the unit test cases, and it's not depending on the numbers, but it depends on that how many behaviors or scenarios can be validated or verified at the unit test level. So that is one thing. So we should try to write unit test cases as much as possible, keeping that behavior and the scenarios in mind. Then once we have enough number of unit test cases at component level, at class level, all those, then we need to, whenever we are having, since the systems are now more complex and complex, we are having multiple layers and multiple components, multiple APIs. So when they are talking to each other, we need to have some number of test cases which is in terms of integration. So those integration test cases needs to be written, which cannot be verified at unit test level. And then we have to look at a smaller number of test cases, which could be like a sanity test, where all those test cases cannot be verified at user experience level, right? So those test cases needs to be written at that level. So what will happen to manual test case? It will still require, because we can reduce that, but we cannot remove that manual test part. So if we are having this type of test case ratio, right, with a different test case, it's going to be a very healthy and matured test suite. That is what. And lots of people are having some ratios defined as well. Like in Google, they say that 70% unit test should be written at 70%, 20% will be there in case of integration test, and 10% will be in end-to-end. So depending upon your situation, you can just define that based upon this test pyramid. And again, if we have written here only unit integration or end-to-end, it does not mean that you cannot have some other layers as well which is required. So say for an example, if you need to specifically mention something like security test or maybe the performance, you can just have that, and you have to define that how much you need, at what level it should be there, and how much test cases that should be an indicator. We need to define that. So this whole test automation pyramid gives us a feel of what should be our test strategy, how our test should be look like, and who will be the actors in that case. So who are going to write those test cases and at what level. So now look at from the DevOps perspective. So if you look at why that this testing is a critical part, because whenever the handoff happening between dev and ops team, testing is actually required. The ops people need to automate, they need to test or verify business logic and processes, and that needs to be automated. If that is not automated, that means again we have done enough work at the development side to automate that and create that test suite, but that part is pending and it will create the further delay. So that is very important. Automate test to verify business logic and processes. Automate test to verify deployments for performance, reliability, and correctness. That is also required. And we should not over automate. On what case? So we should not over automate testing for parts of the system that are changing quickly or that are ambiguously specified or UI specific. So suppose if we want to verify something like a color or maybe some UI specific location positions of some of the items, which can be verified only through or more accurately through manual case. So don't spend more time to automate those parts. It's always good to verify through manually in those cases. So the whole idea of this testing in case of DevOps is not only to ensure that code changes work and integrate well, right? Whatever changes are happening in the code will work and it will integrate also, but also to ensure that changes do not blow up the product, and that is very important. And that's where the ops testing also needs to be streamlined with the devs testing. So if you look at whatever we have discussed so far on the test strategy side, the test pyramid helps us to create better test strategy. Why? Because it says that at what level we should focus more and why, right? And I'm going to introduce one new acronym here, which we will discuss in subsequent slide as well. And it has been also, I have found that behavior-driven development is supposed to identify test automation at various levels, and how we will see that. And BDD is used to achieve shift left testing as well. We will discuss about that shift left testing and the shift right testing later, but this is just something that we need to start with our discussion. And if I will be not explaining, probably we will see that if we can take that in the question answer session. So what is BDD? If you are not knowing this, it's a behavior driven development. Dan North in 2005 has given this idea. He has come up with that. Many people thinks that it's another way to automate that end-to-end testing. There are very less people who actually thinks about that effective way to collaborate among three amigos. So who are those three amigos? Those are BAs, business analysts, developers, and testers. So what we do basically in BDD? So is it BDD? If we are thinking that BDD is automation of functional testing, something our understanding is not correct. So automation of scenarios are just a byproduct, and that is what I am going to use this. So whatever byproduct I am going to get through BDD, I am going to use the BDD in the test pyramid to get that. But that is not only the BDD. BDD's primary objective is something different, which I will explain. If we are using some tool like Cucumber in case of Java, ROR, or RespectFlow in case of .NET, or any other similar tool with Selenium, then also it's not actually, we can say that yes, since we are using these tools, I am doing BDD. BDD is replacement of functional testing. Again, it's just a myth, you can say. So what is BDD? So it's a method or a tool which through which we can explore the unknown. So normally, if you look at from the requirement perspective, right, we are getting lots of assumptions when we start our development. It helps us to explore that unknown part. Working together to find better solutions. So who will work together in case of BDD? It will be the BAs, developers, and testers. They will work together to identify that unknown. And it uses Gherkin language. We can use that Gherkin language, which is ubiquitous language, can be it's more understandable by layman as well. So using given, when, and then. And if you are using this Gherkin language during our collaboration, that is really good. It also uses real-world examples to build a shared understanding of the domain. So that examples actually gives lots of clarity. So people are able to understand that what I'm going to talk about or what the others are talking about. Right. So that is what the BDD is. And if we look at from the BDD framework, any tool that we are going to use, it creates some feature file. The feature file will have lots of scenarios. So suppose we have a user story. That user story can have multiple scenarios, right? So suppose I am saying that as a user, I want to withdraw money from ATM so that some benefit I will get, right? Now if I have to start writing that, there could be various scenarios. So when I'm going to withdraw money, I can have one scenario that ATM is not having sufficient fund. Another scenario could be my account is not having sufficient fund. Another scenario could be that ATM is having fund and account is having fund, but that it is having only 100 rupees of note. It's not having 500 rupees of note, or maybe something like it's not having 500 rupees of note. So that denomination is not there, the currency denomination which we are actually trying to withdraw, right? There could be various other scenarios. So those scenarios, and when we are going to identify those scenarios, basically we have to provide some examples. So as a given I'm having an account in bank and my account is having this much for a fund, okay, when I requested this much amount, then these things happen. That means my account has been debited by this much amount, that ATM balance is now this much, and I got my card returned, right? So those things will give that it will never be a situation where that bank account has been debited but ATM account has not been, right? When the ATM balance has not been. So all those things you have not to think. You are thinking as a group and you are just trying to find out those scenarios. That is the whole thing. Now if we are going with the framework will have one part which is called as feature file. So we can create a feature file. The feature file will have all the scenarios listed down, and that is written in given, when, then format. Then there is a actual code. If you look at in this example, this image, there is actual implementation in the right hand side. So when we are implementing that and when we have the scenarios, we want to verify that those implementation is actually binding with those scenarios. In order to do that, that is what normally the tool does. The tool is providing a glue code which is nothing but the step definitions, and that way each scenario is getting bind with, or our implementation is getting bind with those scenarios, and whenever we will execute we will come to know that yes, these scenarios have been passed or failed. So that is what the BDD framework does, right? So now if you look at already I have explained. So when we have to bind through the glue code, at what level I should bind those? I can bind at UI level, so that time maybe we will require the Selenium or some other that tools, right? So that we can do. But again, if you are binding all the scenarios at UI, which is not good. Why? Because we have to look at what level we can verify those behaviors. If I can verify at module level, let's go at that level. If I can verify at some API or service level, let's go for that. If I can verify at component level, let's go for that, right? So the whole intention is to verify the application behavior. We are not going to do a functional testing there, right? So that's why if you look at in this slide, I have just mentioned at what level, whether component, service, module, UI, we need to find out, and accordingly we should bind those scenarios, right? So that is with when we are having a framework and we are going to do that. Suppose we are not using any framework, we are just writing the scenarios in any format, any text editor, right? We can write down that. Now this glue code or step definitions part will be manual or maybe get automated in some other way. Only thing is these scenarios are not actually getting bind directly. Only thing is we are considering those scenarios, we are writing our own test cases. That is the case. So that is still possible. So what BDD, and this is called as, if you are not using a BDD framework, normally we say it as shallow BDD, right? So that means you are not using a tool, a particular tool, right? So in that case also it's a good thing. Why? Because when you are having a user story and if you are having all those scenarios identified at the right point of time, it gives lots of clarity. That is first of all. And then also I have experimented a couple of places and got a good result as well. We can use it, which I'm going to explain. So first thing, you just understand that when we are talking about BDD with or without framework, collaboration and communication is must. If that is not there, we can't say it as BDD. Testing, whatever is going to come, is just a byproduct, which I am going to use it for the further to make our test strategy much better. Right. So if you look at from the BDD and test pyramid side, so when we are going with this BDD, discuss, identify, and categorize scenarios, what we can do, we can use some tags. So if you look at, this is how the scenario is being written. So we have this scenario, outline, check users login credential, a given user with details created. When I log in, it should give login message, something. Okay. Now if you look at on the top, I'm having that @web, @smoke, @browser. Now when I'm just putting these things, that gives me two understanding. One is I can identify each scenario in terms of implementation, which are the component I need to touch, or I have to implement those changes. I have to do those changes at what level. So whatever components are there, suppose we have the business logic, some API and some other database related API, I can just put there those, like at database level also that change is required, and at business logic also I need that change. So at the rate I can just put some tag which is being understandable by the entire team. That is one thing. Another thing, I can also identify at what level I need to write the test cases. So for these scenarios I need to write an integration test. I can just put. So if you look at here, I have identified this thing just for the understanding @smoke. So that gives me a feel that if I'm just writing this, it could be like my smoke test as well. I can just implement this in terms of test cases in my smoke test suite. Excuse me. So that way we can use the BDD to identify the components which needs to be touched upon. We need to make some changes at what level, and at the same time we can also identify at that particular scenario which are the different test cases I need to write. Okay. And what I have done also, that BDD talks about 3 amigos, that is developer, BAs, and testers. In case of DevOps, we can include the 4th amigo called as Ops. So he can give his perspective from the Ops side. Do he needs any further logging? Do he needs any changes in the some sort of logs or extra logs, or maybe he needs some feature toggling type of implementation? And he can also inform that this particular scenario he also needs some test cases, and or maybe he can suggest some scenarios as well. So that way we can start having that discussion, and we can start collaborating in a better way in case of BDD. So if you look at if we are going to use BDD and test pyramid, so test automation pyramid is giving a strategy to make automation more stable, more maintainable, reduce execution time. Excuse me. So more stable, more maintainable, reduce execution time. And BDD can be adopted to make above strategy more efficient if we are going to use BDD by identifying the scenarios. And scenarios should be less imperative and more declarative. What I mean by imperative and declarative is it should not be more UI specific. It should be focused on the behavior, not from the UI or some user interface perspective. So an implementation binding should be, if you are using any tool, should be done at various level that we have already discussed. And when we are having a collaboration, we are having a better implementation of automation strategy wherever applicable. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the continuous testing, right? So continuous testing, when we are talking about, it's beyond automation and it encompasses many practices. Those are, and it includes tooling and cultural change, and that's where we need to learn lots of different type of tools as well. And cultural change, where I was talking about that we need to break those silos between not only the dev and ops, even the dev and development team, and the different roles are there within the development team and the operation teams as well. And these automation, that whole idea is not just to automate the test case, but it's going to help them mitigate the risks, right? So that at different stages we should able to mitigate those risks. And last but not least, when we are going to achieve continuous testing, we have to go with two approach. We have to mix it, or rather we have to balance those. One is shift left and one is shift right. So what does shift left mean for testing? So if you look at this diagram, it talks about two different activity. One is development, one is released, right? And if you look at the colors, right, it shows that when defects are found. So those are more in case of these, and those are very critical. Why? Because we are finding at very late stage, right? So if you can perform those testing when we have already started the journey, that's going to make a big impact, and that is what the shift left is talking about. So there are lots of things which, if we can do it early, that's what it's going to talk about. And that's the reason somebody has asked, can we do it at the end on the test data? I understand, but without test data, we cannot have our test cases and get executed and giving us the feedback whether the application is behaving correctly or not, right? So that is what the shift left is talking about. Can we do it, those type of testings in parallel of their development, so that we should not identify those later. So let's look at those definitions. Shift left testing is an approach to software testing and system testing in which testing is performed earlier in the life cycle, right? And that's why they say that test early and often, as early as possible, and as times you have made the changes, you can do that, right? And that's the reason anyway I'm going to talk on those particular things in my next session, so where we will see that how it's going to impact in when we are having the complete build pipeline. So when we have understood something on the shift left testing, there is shift right testing as well. So if we are trying to move it on the left side, why we are talking about something on the right side as well? So let's look at those things as well. So in this case, testing is performed later in the life cycle, and that is also required. We cannot ignore that part. So if you look at, a server may go down, but in current situation, nowadays, the server may go down, but the application cannot, and it happens, right? There are data centers where one application is running into multiple servers. One server is down, but the application is not. So user will never feel that application is down, right? Scale and reliability at this moment is very, very critical. And that's the reason we need to perform some type of testing at very real time. And that is what the right shift. and those type of testing should be done at that moment only, at that level only, right? Like monitoring characteristics such as performance and usability, we can't do it a lot on the left side. We have to do at right side. Beta testing lots of time we do, right? We have to provide some beta release and we see that how that feedback is going from coming from the actual users, right? There could be lots of other ways to do that also. Reliability test, lots of tools are there which actually does in the real time production data center, right? It will make complete data center also down, and it will, we can see that yes, it's up and running. So there are various type of things which we cannot. So to make our application scalable and reliable, we have to do this balance, so that one thing is whether the application is behaving appropriately or not, which can be done if we can shorten that entire things, feedback loop and all those things with the help of shift left testing. And shift right testing is giving us more confidence that even though that something is going drastically wrong, application will be up and running, right? So that type of balance we need to do. And if we are going to have this right combination together, we can have a continuous testing, and that is very much required if we are going in terms of DevOps. So as a summary, if you look at DevOps needs a test strategy, and that is where we were talking about. So that is very important. Test pyramid is key for strategy, so we can use the test pyramid and we can define our own test pyramid, and that could be used to create that strategy. We can use the BDD in test pyramid, so that at what level on a particular requirement or something we need to automate or we need to write test cases, those should be identified. Continuous testing is important ingredient for DevOps, so we need to balance both the shift left and shift right depending upon our application need or that users need, right? So that's all right now from my end on this today. Next session we are going to talk about something on the continuous deployment, and there we will be also talking about on that build pipeline, right? We will see that some of the tools as well. As far as some of the tools from whatever we have discussed so far in the testing strategy, if you look at for unit test cases, there are various tools for the various technology which is being used. So Java we are having JUnit, for .NET we have an unit, and even the MS test we have for C, C++ we have the C and CP unit, and Python we have PyTest, right? Similar to that, there are lots of other unit framework is available which can be used depending upon the technology which we are going to use. Like lots of JavaScript framework is there, Node.js and so on. So that there we can use Jasmine in that case. Similarly, for BDD, there are tools I have already named that can be used if you are using. We started using and defining the scenarios. You started collaboration, then the next step is tool. So that you can use depending upon your technology. That Cucumber or SpecFlow, right? That can be used. We can use some of the continuous integration tools as well, like Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity. Those tools we can use, and on those lines I will discuss more in detail in my next session, so that we will discuss on. So that's all from my side today.
So thank you, Vinay. This brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you all once again and have a good evening. Thank you, Vinay.
Thank you. Thanks all. Have a nice evening.